Hello everybody and welcome to season 2 of Supersymmetry. A little bit of stuff has happened in between episodes. I just planned out sort of where I'm going to actually expand this hallway. It was just clearing and I wanted to try and make it so that this goes in 4 directions again. That makes sense. My goal for today is to move the primitive blast furnace and the coke ovens into their own separate room, along with making a room for the steam machines so that I can actually build them and it look tidy. So to begin this adventure, I need to clear out basically this chunk over here so that I have space for these coke ovens. Well, I may have got a little bit carried away with the building. Just a little bit. So this is basically the design for the coke ovens, which I'm going to be using. I am yet to automate these, but I will be automating them very soon. So I'll actually just be able to put... My plan is to have items on one side, item output, and then fluid output on the other. Same for the blast furnaces. I'm going to have a row of 3 here because 3 probably still isn't going to be enough moving into low voltage. But at least I've planned for more than one, which is something which I didn't do in season 1 of Supersymmetry. Then this side is going to be where I'm going to have the steam machines. Hence why this wall is basically been pushed back. That is so that I can have crates along this bottom block and then crates on the top with hoppers, so that it doesn't actually, come out into this hallway and doesn't clutter the hallway. Behind here, I have made a lovely room. This is going to be for where I have the steam pipes come through. Since I'm going to be using the solar boilers, I need access to the sun or access to the surface to actually place the boilers. So the fluid pipes will come down here. They'll go under the ground again, and then they'll come up to the steam machines and any other steam machines which I need. That's the plan. And I've also been reading the comments from the first episode over the weekend, and everyone is very happy that I'm doing this again. And you're all saying about the audio issues. That should be fixed in this episode. Yeah, I just forgot to set the mixer options for the game volume. So... oops, it'll be fixed. It'll be fixed this episode. So there are a couple of things which I need to go exploring for. One of which is silver. That only spawns inside these sulfidic silver veins in the overworld, thankfully. And the other thing which I also need is lead for potin. And lead also spawns in the overworld in a couple of veins. The galena vein, prostite. Prostite? Some of the names in these are just... I have trouble pronouncing them. Proustite. Let me know if I'm pronouncing that incorrectly. Proustite, I think, is how it's made. And then the real Garvane, which also spawns galena. So I have a little bit of exploring to do to actually find these things. Hello, Mr. Zombie. All of these mobs seem to be attracted to the top of this ladder. Right, begin the exploring. Okay, I found a Galena vein. I'll be marking this with journey maps so that I can come back here. There's one. One of the next requirements coming up is going to be water. But you might ask, well, how do you get water? In GTNH, to produce water, you needed the water reservoirs early on to be able to get water. In this, I'm going to need the primitive water pump though. This is the multi-block for this. Placing this over a river will start producing 1,000 millibuckets per second of water, as seen in this information here. I can also increase the water output if I upgrade the output hatch, but for the moment I will just be using the 1x one, which is just the standard pump hatch for this. Using creosote oil from the coke oven, I can craft a whole lot of these treated wood planks. If you don't already know in GregTech, it's always a good idea to prepare more than what you end up using. So instead of me crafting the bare minimum of treated wood, I'm going to craft way more than I need. Yes, I'm also going to need one of these pump output hatches. This will actually allow me to start extracting the water from this primitive water pump. Oops. Okay, well that was my first death, and that was caused because I accidentally pressed F6 and didn't realize it activates a free cam. Yeah, whoops. Oh yeah, check this out. So I've been preparing a lot of materials since I know that making these steam machines requires a lot of bronze. This is my tin and copper stockpile at the moment. All of this I'm going to end up using, I promise that. I thought I'd also leave this in the video since this just shows how beautiful supersymmetry is when the sun rises. Now I'm ready to build this primitive water pump and build the pipeline which is going to feed the base with water. And a few of you may notice a change in my voice. I think that's because I've got a cold. Yeah, you know, it's not the greatest for me recording, but what can I do? Also, here's something which I found quite interesting about this. So this is GregTech Community Edition Unofficial. I can place these large fluid pipes inside the wood frame boxes, and I can even interact them like this. I can still set the flow direction. Yeah, I thought that's quite cool that you can actually do this. That definitely gives me ideas for decorating purposes, especially using these frame boxes since you can actually climb them like a ladder. Shift right clicking these large fluid pipes will set a flow direction. This basically means that the fluids in this cannot be pushed into the previous pipe, they can only be pushed forward. With water in the base, I can now craft up some of these bricks. These are required to make many of the steam machines moving forward, including the solar steam boilers. Yeah, I can now pick up one of these solid fuel boilers. I'm actually not able to make the steam boilers the solar steam boilers just yet, since I need glass, which requires an alloy smelter, at least a steam alloy smelter. So that is the beginning of chapter 1, starting a revolution. So remember all of this bronze which I made? Well, I'm going to need a lot of it. And I'm also going to need a lot of these bronze plates. So 1 stack. Steam alloying. And I also don't see why I shouldn't go and upgrade this to the high pressure variant. I can't actually make this yet, since I need one of these steam mixers to be able to make this tin alloy dust. And a whole lot of copper, tin and lead dust later, I can craft a full batch of potent. This is going to be the main material for making steam fluid pipes. I'm also going to be using the regular potent fluid pipes to transfer steam. Since if I make the smaller tiers, either the small or the tiny, the flow rate is quite low. And I'm going to need this high flow rate when I eventually reach low voltage. So it's a sensible idea, well, I think it is, just to use the regular fluid pipes to start with. Now it's time to set up my very first steam machine, the steam alloy smelter. Alright, I can give this solid fuel boiler some coal and it will start producing steam for me. It does need to heat up though, so it won't produce steam immediately once it gets fuel. And after using some of the steel which I get from the PVF to make one of these mold blocks, I'm now able to craft glass in the alloy smelter along with glass dust, which is made using quartz sand and a tiny pile of flint in the crafting grid. Nice and easy. While I'm here, I might as well also pick up this quest which requires these 4 molds. This should also unlock the quest for the glass, which I've already completed. Now I'm able to pick up this high pressure steam solar boiler, which means that I can now start producing steam passively as long as it's day. Yeah, very short-lived on the solid fuel boilers. I'm not too much of a fan of them, if you can't already tell, just because it means that I have to supply them with coal, and the solar ones just run as long as the sun is shining, which it always will be. Plus, this has also made me try to build this in a kind of a decorative way. And this time I'm also planning for more than one of these solars. Early on, plan early on, that's always what I do now. So I'll be able to have 7 here, another 7 here, and another 7 here for a total of 21 so high pressure steam solar boilers, which I am going to end up needing that many. For how much steam is required to actually enter the low voltage age, I'm gonna need so many of them. I'm also cooking some bronze in this alloy smelter now because it's more efficient to do it this way. Instead of producing 3 bronze using 3 copper and 1 tin, using the alloy smelter means that I can produce 4 ingots from 3 copper ingots and 1 tin. Or you can use the dusts, in this case you can. Oh, and then I had to go and catch a virus or a cold or something. Yeah, it's been a few days since I've last been recording. It's been about 6 days actually, because whatever I caught, it really sort of it made me difficult to speak. Yeah, and I'm still coughing a little bit, so it's going to take a little bit of time just to get in the swing of things for what I'm actually playing, because I've had such a long time not playing this. So I just made one of these steam alloy smelters. I remember doing this. This is going to be very helpful in producing bronze and glass for later in the game. Yes, I'm remembering what I need to do next. So I'm now going to make one of these steam forge hammers. Yeah, this steam forge hammer is going to be even more useful than the alloy smelter. This will allow me to start producing plates at a ratio of 3 ingots to 2 plates compared to 2 ingots to 1 plate. It's slightly more efficient. Oh, remember this noise? That's a good noise. That's a good noise to hear. Yeah, I definitely say that I miss this noise. And now I'm at a stage where I need to start collecting loads of hoppers. I'm going to upgrade how many PBFs I have instead of trying to wait until I get the EBF, because that's what I did last time, and that was the first mistake, or the second or third mistake I made while I was playing for the first time. I need lots of PBFs in the early game to actually sort of progress at a decent rate. So instead of adding 1 or 2 more, I'm going to add 3 more PBFs, and I'm going to wall share all of them in a 5x5. And for anyone who's wondering how many fire bricks are required to build these PBFs, you need 88 fire bricks, and that's including the cost of the fire bricks required to make the primitive blast furnace controllers. I'm next going to pick up one of these steam macerators, and one of the things I can use this macerator for is processing some of these ores. It is going to take, wow, 40 seconds per ore. That's going to take a little while. However, once I actually process magnetite ore into magnetite dust, which does not need to be put in the centrifuge or the ore washer, I have another way to actually clean this properly. Yeah, throwing these impure piles of magnetite dust, or any impure pile of dust, into a cauldron will clean it. Now I can use this magnetite dust in this blast furnace, and this one is kind of special since it's more efficient to use this dust instead of the ores. Just looking at the recipe, for this recipe it will cost 4 coal coke along with 2 magnetite dust will produce 6 pig iron ingots, compared to smelting 1 magnetite ore produces 3 pig iron ingots for 4 coal coke. So I end up saving 2 pieces of coal coke to produce the same amount. It's small efficiencies like this, I do quite like them very, very much. It's probably a smart idea moving forward to automate these coke ovens, since using coal coke in the PBFs, well, you can imagine I'm having to restock all of these coke ovens manually with coal, and take the coal coke and creosote oil out, and I don't really have a good way to use the creosote oil, but I have plans for that in the future, and I will get back to you on that for when I'm ready to actually use the creosote oil. Where are these zombies coming from? Another one has managed to get in my base. And since I've got this coke oven automated now, I need to start using this creosote oil since I can't avoid it. And the best way that I can think of to actually start using creosote oil is to make these liquid steam boilers. Yeah, having these liquid boilers just gives the creosote oil a way to be burned, just so that I can keep the coke ovens running as long as possible, as long as I put coal in there. And plus these will give a bit extra steam production, which is never a bad thing. With the addition of a pretty decent stockpile of steel, I'm going to pick up one of these multi-block tanks from GregTech, just so that I can store quite a lot of steam. Because of the solar boiler only working during the day, I should end up storing steam so that I have enough for overnight, basically. Anyway, I'm finding steel at the moment not to be too hard to actually make. Now that I have this coke oven completely automated, the amount of coal coke which I get from this, I can leave the local server running, and this will continue producing charcoal when I'm not actually logged into the world. And yes, I know some of you might say about the server, I usually host servers now. Myself, I host them locally so that I can actually play. It's just so that I can leave mainly GregTech machines running when I'm not actually in the game, if that makes sense to everyone. And the multi-block for this tank is a 3x3. The multi-block controller needs to go in the middle on one of the sides. And when using the tank valves, they need to be oriented down for this to auto output. So this means that I won't need to actually place a pump or anything on this tank to extract fluids. It should automatically output. I'm also loving these metal ladders from Tech Guns mod. They blend really well with some of these machines, even the coke ovens which I have. This should mean good steam is coming through here, and it is being automatically output. And by the looks of it, it's outputting at the rate of these potent fluid pipes, which is also really good. The GUI in here, yeah, this is a nice GUI. It actually displays how much fluid is currently being stored. You see the steam is slowly increasing. This also means that I can store some of the steam which come from the creosote oil, because this isn't going to be running 100% of the time. So hopefully the creosote oil, it won't be wasted basically, if I can store the steam. And on that note, I think I'm going to wrap up the episode here. It's been very, very fun setting up all of these steam machines. I am loving playing Supersymmetry again. Yeah, it's super fun. Well, I hope you've all thoroughly enjoyed watching as much as I've enjoyed playing, and I hope to see you all again in the next episode of Supersymmetry.